Hey everybody, sorry about that. Yeah, sorry about that other live stream there. Screwed up at the last second, had everything set up and then forgot like the one thing that I had to do last second and kind of forgot. Finally, I didn't get on. Oh, congrats on the 1K subs. Appreciate that, brother Crush. Really do. Means a lot, man. Um, but yeah, that first one, that was a whoops. I forgot to set my camera. You got to see all the crazy mess around my setup, which yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, it definitely looks a lot nicer, a little more zoomed in. You don't see all the mess going on around my apartment. But hope everyone's doing well. Thank you guys so much for helping me hit 1K subscribers. It really does mean a lot. This, just like the other live streams I've done in the past, it's a Q&A where you guys can ask me anything, hang out, chat, whatever you want to do. Like, this is for you guys. I'll be here for 2 hours just hanging out, answering questions, chilling with you guys. The direction of the stream really is up to you guys in chat. Like, you guys get to choose how this stream goes. What you guys say in chat and all that, like the questions you ask, and yeah, that'll determine the direction of everything. So I'm going to be answering questions, and those questions may spark other ideas or questions or whatever. So yeah, this is just a thank you to you guys for helping me hit 1K subs. Again, sorry for the first fake the live stream where I screwed up, but yeah. Other than owning most of 3.5 books, why you not jump to 5e? Okay, that's a good question. Well, one, I do own most 3.5 books. That is a reason. I think it's at least a third of them. There's a lot of them. I own a lot, but there's a lot of them. But a big reason why I don't is 5e is just kind of dumbed down for my taste, or watered down at the very least. Like, there's a lot to 5e. Well, there's like just so much more content in 3.5. Like, you can customize your character to so much bigger extent. Yeah, there's a heavy learning curve, but that's another reason why I stuck with it. Is I learned the learning curve, and I didn't want to have to learn something else. Although turns out 5e, there isn't that much of a learning curve if you already know 3.5. Most of the stuff's already there, and then it's learning the simplifications that they made. So yeah. Congrats on 100K on 100K. Wow, I wish 1,000 subs. Appreciate that, Bloodbot. JG Gormley, how do you feel about open game license changes? Ooh, I've heard about that. I heard about that a bit in my Discord, as well as I've seen a little bit on Twitter. I don't think it will affect anything to do with 3.5, or probably not 5e either, because when reading the open game license in the book, it does state that you can use any open game license from this point and then also anything new going forward, and you can choose which one. So if they change it, you don't have to go use the new open game license. You can always use an older one. So that's something that makes me think something like 3.5 and 5e, and probably even 4e, which, I mean, who cares? But you're not going to have to worry about. It's really 1D&D that I think is going to be affected more than anything. I mean, they've been talking about whispers, but the way that I understand the open game license, I don't think they can legally affect older systems. But I don't think you can use older open game licenses on newer products retroactively. I think you have to use open game license, the most recent one that was out at the publishing of the material or later. So yeah. Bloodbrought, Bard 3.5, early level spell suggestions. My Bard is level 1, so I guess level 1 and 2 spells. Ooh. Off the top of my head, Glitter Dust is always very useful in case you end up against someone who's invisible. That's just a super nice one. I'm not super familiar with them off the top of my head. Let's see. Got a player's handbook right here, though. Happens to be an arm reach, so you can probably come up with something. If you want to please the YouTube algorithm gods, I feel like it is required to put open game license in the video title. Maybe. I don't know because I don't know if I'm the open game license is weird, and I'm not sure how that applies to my videos exactly. So I don't know. It's a whole mess, and I am not familiar enough with legal to really speak too much on it. I mean, I took business law, so I know a little bit about it, but this is way over my head. Um, it'll be like 3.5. Just can't use mind flayers and such creatures. However, you can easily look up stats and add them to your campaign. Um, blood, honestly, blood honesty spell selection is really based off the party. Yeah, that's true. Your spell selection does vary on party. Um, oh, and it's a gnome, so it gets dancing lights, ghost sounds, and prestidigitation. Nice. I played gnomes before; they were very fun. I did gnome illusionists. I love those guys; they were fun. Let's see. Alarm can be useful. Let's see. Charm person maybe. Comprehend languages has its uses, especially at low levels. Cure light wounds isn't terrible. Um, I'm just going through the list here. Grease. Oh, Grease is actually really good. Featherfall can be really nice. Identify can be useful. Um, Silent Image can always be fun. Sleep can be useful as well, depending on the situation. Summon Monster can be useful. Tasha's Hideous Laughter is actually really nice. Ventriloquism can be okay. Those are just good first level ones. Oh, yeah, you already said that. Let's see. Alter Self can be okay, I guess. I'm just going through. Again, Cure Moderate Wounds is okay. The Cure spells aren't the greatest, but they work. Darkness can be useful. Detect Thoughts again can be useful. It really depends on what you're trying to do. There's just so much. Like I say, Glitter Dust is really good if you haven't invisible people. Invisibility itself is really useful. Again, the minor image, mirror image. Silence can be really good actually, depending on the situation. Like so many of these are good depending on the situation. Summon Monster 2 again is good. Summon Swarm can be useful. Tongues can be useful. Like there's so many spells that can be useful. It just really depends on what you're trying to do. Yeah. Let's see. Party makeup is Ranger, Bard, Wizard, Barbarian, Rogue, and I forgot the last one. Gotcha. So with the Rogue, things like grabbing invisibility to hit the Rogue with can be useful. Um, yeah, there's various different things that like it really just depends on what you want your role to be is in the party. Like the spells you pick really depend on what kind of caster you want to be. Hey, whatever happened to the 3.5e game you thought about running with community members? That is something that I am thinking about doing. I just haven't put too much out there on that. I'm not sure what kind of engagement I'm going to have with it. In addition, if I do something like that, I would want to do it for the channel to be making like content and stuff. And also, I'd probably stream it on Twitch and then put the videos on the YouTube channel if I did it. And if I was going to do that, I would want, good content. So I'd want everybody to be, on camera and all that fun stuff so that it's engaging content. And, I need to make sure there was a lot. So I need to have a number of people that are willing to not only play, but also go on camera and be willing to like just be part of the channel. And on top of that, I'd have to make sure like they're not going to be problematic, and there's a whole lot of logistics that come into it, and and I'd have to find like 4 to 5 solid people that are willing to do all that. So I don't know. I mean, I've got 1,000 subs, but that's a pretty big ask, and I just don't know if I'm got the following to pull that one off yet. Um, who that Diego? No idea if I have time, but yay for more D&D options. What's my favorite number? Probably 7. I like 7 a lot. Then cure wounds and spells that buff party. That wizards can do different spells. Cure wounds is okay. The problem is healing in combat isn't particularly effective. The main reason why you'd want to have like a cure wound spell handy is just for free stabilize if things get dire. So that's the main reason you'd want to have that handy. Yeah, it's not that useful. Or, if in downtime, if you want to heal up faster. But it's not, the cure spells aren't that useful. Unfortunately, I wish they were. I love, uh, having healers. Like I love playing them, but they're unfortunately not that good in 3.5 for the most part. You can make them good, but you have to take some weird routes to do it. So, often, like be a summoner that summons things that can cure is generally better than curing yourself, which is kind of weird, but it works. It does tend to be the case. Gotcha. Thank you, sir. Curious on a juice for grease. Wonder if I can catch it on fire. Also, do bonus fire damage. Typically, no with grease, but at the same, I mean, your DM might allow it, but typically no. But one thing that you can do is, I mean, you can hit like you throw it underneath an enemy, and particularly maybe a barbarian or something, and now they're not able to and that might mess with their ability to do stuff, especially if they're like in. I know with a frenzied berserker, grease works really well. It like makes it so they just can't attack, kind of freezes them in place. Less good on other things, but I believe it does. I think it might actually deny dexterity, so you could drop it on somebody and then help the rogue get their sneak attack. So, yeah, not by design, but flavor, context. It's your game. Reward players for great. Exactly, Russell. Yeah, I remember some of your previous party didn't want to. You talked about on a previous stream. Yeah, with are you talking about the grease? I'm not sure what you're talking about there, Diego. Oh, I get what you're talking about now. You're talking about being on camera. Yeah, a lot of like not everybody wants to be on camera. Like, I mean, obviously, I'm cool with it. Like, I wouldn't have started this channel if I wasn't cool with being on camera. I mean, obviously, but you know, a lot of people don't want to be on camera. They just don't want that. So, finding people who are okay with being on camera for a session, and also people that I can trust and get along with, and there's a lot that goes into it. So yeah, and plus I'd have to find ways to like schedule with everybody. Man, I hadn't even thought of that one. Yeah, like it'd be a whole thing. And as I said, I'd probably stream it over on my Twitch channel, and then bring the VOD over onto YouTube. So that'd probably be how I do it. Get a twofer on it. For extra content. Let's see. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do buffs for party and debuffs for enemies. Oh, yeah. Buff and debuffs, a great way to go, especially for bards. They're particularly good at buffing and debuffing. Not even just with spells, but, I mean, they have their bardic music, which is very good. More so for buffing, and at least with the standard bard, there's definitely prestige classes you can do that are very good at debuffing. Although even then, I'd say they're more of a buffing class, but they can absolutely debuff with that. So yeah, bards are amazing support. They're not that great in their own right. Like a lone bard just by themselves is one of the weakest classes in the game. I mean, they're not the weakest, but they're not particularly good alone. Whereas other classes tend to be better. Bards are really good in big groups. And they're not good themselves in the big groups. Bards make everyone else better, and that's huge. So yeah, having the bard to just like make everyone else better is a huge boon for the party. Unless foe has ranks in tumble, grease is great debuff. Yeah, grease is a very good debuff. It makes it really hard for enemies to move. So it'll definitely slow them down a lot for a turn, and it'll make it so that an area of the battlefield is basically blocked off. Um, you need to be careful on the blocking off the battlefield part because your initial section of putting it hitting it on somebody so that they're stuck and have their movement hindered considerably for a round. That's amazing, and that's not too hard to work. But it can come back to bite you in the butt later in the round when, or not in the round, but later in the combat when maybe your party needs to go over that greased area, and now they're having to make a bunch of saves. So that can potentially suck. So you got to be a little careful about that. Um, Battlefield control spells, you need to know tactics in order to use effectively. You really need to have a strong tactical mind in order to use them. I know a lot of people swear by them, and most of them have strong tactical minds. So they don't realize that people who don't have those strong tactical minds, they struggle with those spells and tend to botch them and make them not good. So yeah, grease is not as bad though because it has some strong immediate use. Um, think Bloodbot. Thank you for 3.5 content info, etc. I appreciate that. You seem to be the only current YouTuber making content for it. Very helpful. Yeah, I'm pretty much the only guy that's really still doing this full time. There were a couple people that used to do this full time back when I started, and there have been some other people that have tried to start doing 3.5 channels throughout the years that I've seen, but most of them fizzle out after a few months. I'm really the only one that's been going for years and years. So yeah, there's that. Um, yeah, I plan to keep going. So same as Blood. Appreciate the videos. Not a whole lot of coverage on 3.5. Years since I ran it and feeling more confident. Oh, appreciate that, Brother Crush. Appreciate that. Yeah, as I said, I just decided one day to start making these, and I don't know. I feel like continuing. I enjoy making the videos, and I mean, your support definitely makes me want to do it more. Not gonna lie. So, yeah, I consider cleric to be the best class new players should start with. Interesting, cleric. Yeah, I can see that. Not heal bots, but battle packs. Ooh, interesting. I've seen people go heal bots with clerics to start, but I can see what you're saying with battle clerics. That's interesting. It really depends on the player's style. Like I have one player, he's a new player, and he's basically a heal bot cleric, but at the same time, like his general personality is very much just sort of laid back and watch, and he's not the kind of guy that likes to engage much himself, just in general. Like I've seen him outside of this game and doing, other campaigns and stuff, and he tends to just prefer to watch and participate from time to time. So for him, Healbot's perfect, but yeah, not for everybody. Battle Cleric's an interesting one. Fighters isn't too bad of a starting one. Barbarian again is also not too bad, fairly easy to build. Yeah. Um, Cleric is a class I'm playing in a different campaign, still 3.5. Going good war, not bad. Plan is go in and smash heads, but also support where needed with buffs and heals. Nice, nice. I'm most excited for playing Cleric. Nice. Cleric's not a bad one at all. True, most starts healers. Then you find out doing damage is more effective than heal. Yeah, unfortunately, it really sucks that healing just isn't that effective unless you make like a heal summoner. Someone that summons like a bunch of unicorns or angels or something, and then once they come out, they all use their many different actions to heal a bunch of people all at once, and you basically get a lot of healing bang for your buck. In terms of action economy, it's way more useful to use summons to heal. which is, I don't know, it's a weird dynamic, but yeah, using summons to heal is way more effective than healing yourself in terms of action economy typically. Unless you want to blow like a really big spell like, heal mass, then okay, that's great for healing with action economy, but that's a freaking, what is that, eighth level spell, I think? Or is it ninth? I can't remember. I think it's ninth. But yeah, it's a big spell. It works, but yeah, and if you're fighting against a horde of undead, then heal mass is amazing because you get a nice twofer. You get to heal the whole party and also deal massive damage to all your enemies all in one shot. Cool. That's actually an amazing spell when fighting hordes of undead. But it's very specific on that, and it's considerably less good otherwise. Still really nice, but I don't know if it's worth a ninth level spell slot. Summoning or Radiant Servant of Palar. Yeah, Radiant Servant of Palar is very helpful. There's a few other classes that are also really good for making heal bots as well. But yeah, Radiant Servant of Palar is definitely one of the better ones out there for sure. My player that's a heal bot is very much a Radiant Servant of Palar. Also gave him Sacred Exorcist, I think, just because that's one of the very few classes that gives full casting and full turn undead. So you really lose nothing as a cleric by taking those. The Six Members Druid. Wait, no, different campaign. Sorry. Fair enough. But yeah, there's so much going on with that. Like clerics are one of the most versatile classes. I don't honestly, in a way, clerics are super, super good because the way that you pick your domains, and if you go into devotion feats heavy, you can make clerics that are very good at many, many different things. And honestly, makes me wonder if that really is the best for a new player, because clerics can be one of their more complicated classes to play. Although I guess you don't really need to go into that when playing a new character. So Wizard, I'd say, would be one of the worst for a new player, just because of how much you have to do with wizards. But yeah, try a Rogue Ranger combo. Oh yeah, that's a good one. At Able Learner can go either mostly Ranger or Rogue, be a Skill Monkey with Ranger or Skill Monkey with Sneak Attack. Yeah, and there's a feat for that as well. That lets you stack Ranger and Rogue, I believe, which is pretty nice. Or was it Scout and Ranger? Oh no, it's Scout and Ranger. That's even better. Yeah, you go Scout and Ranger and really, really add up everything. Oh no, Ranger Rogue I think also has one. There's just so many feats, that so many different options. It's hard to keep track of them all. But yeah, a lot of really good stuff out there in 3.5. But that is one of the better ones. Now, I mean, you're never going to be as good as casters, unfortunately, because casters are just broken in 3.5. And honestly, in any Dungeons and Dragons game, at least that I'm aware of, like they're broken in 5e as well. But I don't know. Just magic is just so good. It's really hard to balance magic. I know Tome of Battle did a pretty decent job of trying, but then they came out with things that buffed magic even more so. Daring Outlaw is Rogue Swashbuckler. Nice. Yeah, there's so many good ones. Swashbuckler's interesting too, because that's not even like that common of a class. Like I rarely hear Swashbuckler come out like ever. It's solid, but it's just not one that's used much. Partially because in terms of base classes, you have to be exceptionally good to really be worth a build when you're not in the player's handbook. Because unfortunately, the way it works is basically no races are going to have you as a favored class, and you're going to just not get nearly as much support, which is honestly really problematic. I really think that there needs to be some homebrew stuff going on to be like, okay, let's add multiple different favored classes to some races to, make it so that, the all the classes that are in supplement books are actually addressed and have races that have them as favored classes as well. I don't know. I think that that would be something that should be done to, I don't know, make it a little bit better, but it's hard to say. It would definitely not be raw, but at the same time, like favored classes becomes a problem, and just any class that's not in the player's handbook doesn't get support, especially if they're a caster, because their spell list, unless they copy the spell list of a player's handbook class, don't get the full benefits. So, yeah, you have to be. The class has to be really good to actually be worth it if it's not in the player's handbook. Like if it's just matches on the surface, it's not worth doing probably because it doesn't have the support, which just sucks. Um, be interesting to be able to do an elemental archer with fire, ice, lightning arrows. Ooh, interesting. If that's somehow possible, probably is. I know there's the arcane archer off the top of my head. I don't know how well that would work for it. I mean, you could always just be a ranger that happens to have a bunch of arrows and just craft a bunch of fire, ice, and lightning. Yeah, that's easy to do. Just use some money, man. Like, now that I think about it, arrows aren't that expensive. Either that or you get 3 different bows. You get a fire, ice, and a lightning bow and can fire arrows from different ones. Create a bow called Tri-Bow, and each combat round player chooses an element. Say, make it a +2. Yeah, you could always homebrew some stuff too. Um, yeah, there's definitely things you can do to make that. Like a worst case scenario, you make 3 bows: a fire, a lightning, and an ice one, and you're able to you just switch bows, or you enchant a bunch of arrows. If you don't want to do that, enchant a bunch of fire arrows, a bunch of ice arrows, a bunch of lightning arrows, and then you can just grab whatever you want whenever you need it. The second option is the more expensive of the options, but it's absolutely something you can do and not too expensive. Arrows are a lot cheaper to craft than bows. So, yeah. Or I imagine I could get my DM to work with me on that sort of thing. Yeah, DMs are often able to let you homebrew something as long as it seems reasonable. Uh, I think they are up for most things if I can make stuff make sense. See, yeah, that's sweet. That's awesome, man. Like I said, worst case scenario, you spend extra money and you get fire, ice, and lightning arrows and enchant them. But if that's if your DM's like, no, I'm not allowing anything. Rules is written only. It's like, well, okay, you just enchant a bunch of arrows. It works. But if your DM is down to let you make some custom stuff, then yeah, easy. Yeah, make some a custom item that has a bow that can change its element. That works pretty well, to be honest. I done a few similar type things in the past. I had a DM that let me make a feat that made it so that I could treat all hand and a half weapons as martial weapons when wielded in a single hand. So, yeah, I got a feat that let me do that. My DM let me work on that one so that I was able to have like some extra large weapons and do a little bit of extra damage. Like, I had a maul and a dwarven war axe and the bastard sword, and I could just use whichever one I wanted. All had different. They were all made out of different material. I think the maul was adamantine, so like I could just smash down walls with it. That was pretty fun. So yeah, but fun to see if the wizard slash bard other caster could imbue arrows before I fire them or imbue them out of combat to be used in combat. If they take the if they take the item creation feats and are high enough level, then yes, they can. But they're going to have to pay experience and money, and it's a whole thing. But they could. But they need the feed, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into making those out of combat. Basically, it's just a cheaper way to buy them. Think Fire or something is a level 2 wizard spell. Buy him a Pearl of Power. Oh yeah, if there's fire arrows, that works too. Pearl of Power, and let him create custom spells that do ice, sonic, acid, fire. Or if he just takes there's a feat in, I think it's complete arcane, maybe complete mage, that lets you change the element type of a spell that you're casting. So you could do fire arrows and just change it to something else. And yeah, just get him a couple of Pearl of Powers and have him do that for you. That could work. Even water could be useful. Water's not an element in the game that's ice, but yeah, could be cool. Because our levels are milestone, we won't be we won't be paying experience to craft stuff. Not sure what they will use for crafting yet. We're still level 1. Gotcha. Well, yeah, you can't craft. You can't magically enchant at level 1. You can craft at level 1, but only mundane stuff using the whole crafting skill, which is a whole thing. And honestly, you're probably going to be mediocre at best at that at level 1, and that's if you invest heavily. But yeah, uh, eventually you could potentially do stuff. Arcane Archer is okay for it, but you can only do AoE spells with the Imbue Arrow ability. Yeah, Arcane Archer, it's the obvious one that comes to mind, but at the same time, like, I remember Arcane Archer was so-so in terms of how good it was. So that's Arcane Archer for you, unfortunately. But it actually does have some really cool uses potentially. But yeah, crafting is really up to the type of campaign. Honestly, our house or house rule some stuff. Yeah, that is true, because crafting, especially if you're doing like crafting, that takes stupid amounts of time. It's like, all right, I want to make this armor. Okay, well that'll be 3 months. It's like 3 months of downtime. Can you swing 3 months of downtime in your campaign? The question that's a big maybe. Probably not in most campaigns. So that can be an issue. Whereas, like enchanting, that's less of a problem since it's 1 day per 1,000 gold of the cost. But even then, like, if it's an expensive item, it's like, 50,000 gold. That's still like 2 months. So yeah, that can be a really long process. Um, 3 months or 1/5 level wizard spell. LOL. Yeah. Wait. Are you talking about permanency? Because I'm not sure if permanency works on everything, but yeah, that could potentially work on some spells. Fabricate. Gotcha. But I'm not super familiar with that one. But yeah, that could definitely help with dealing. Oh, fabricate. Can't do magic. Gotcha. Fabricate to make to do crafting of like a mundane but masterwork, like adamantine full plate. Yeah, I think I spent like 6 months making an adamantine full plate for my character or something stupid. It's absolutely ridiculous how long some of these things can take. Yeah, although yeah, the fabricate spell can speed things up. But yeah, but see, that's another thing. Why crafting is like, well, why magic is so OP is because something that would take a martial character, like a fighter that's put a ton of ranks into into the craft skill, who's really just like really dumped a lot of resources into being able to make armor. A wizard just comes along, uses 1/5 level spell, and accomplishes what that fighter could have done in several months in a day, and it's like just as good, and not even a day. And that's part of why magic is so OP, is because of stuff like that. Like, magic can just render so many things that other classes, like the other martial classes, can do just irrelevant. And yeah, that's a whole thing. Uh, Try day by day, add spellcraft checks times 5 added to the 1,000 per day house rule. LOL. Well, the normal day by day one is actually worse than the week by week, since at least I think it is. Pretty sure it is. Pretty sure. Maybe I got the math wrong, but Yeah, it's a whole thing. I'm trying to remember if it is worse or not. Because oh yeah, it definitely is because it's 10 times more. So the day price is 10 times that of the week price, but you only have 7 times as many days. So effectively, you're not getting the full value, but it's mostly there for, hey, I got close and I want to finish off before the end of the week. Like that way you don't have to spend the full week to get something done. You can just do it in a couple days. Or maybe you're just making something simple like arrows. And it's like, all right, well, I can knock a whole bunch of these out in one day. You know, it works. But yeah, I see what you're saying with house rule. But yeah, rules is written going by day is actually slower than going by week. But you just generally don't go by day unless you're almost done with the project and want to finish it off without using the whole week, or it's a simple project and you're just like, all right, you have one day of downtime. What do you want to do? It's like, I want to craft a bunch of arrows. It's like, all right, how many arrows can you make in a day? The answer is actually kind of a lot. Arrows are very easy to craft. So yeah, they're, I think, what, one gold? No, they're not even one gold. They're one gold for 20. So you can make a lot in a day. You figure out, how many you can make in a day and then be like, all right, I made this many gold worth of, like, I made this much gold worth of arrows today. It's like, all right, I made like a lot of arrows today. There's a reason I don't keep track of non-magic ammo. Yeah, I don't, as a DM, I don't make my players keep track of that, at least not heavily. I like, okay, buy a quiver of arrow, like buy like 2 or 3 quivers, and every so often I'll make you buy another one, and you'll have to spend another gold. Like that's how I keep track of it. Is I just say, all right, yeah, every so often I'll be like, yeah, your arrows are getting low, go buy some more, and then they'll have to spend a few more gold. But like they're like, okay, whatever, because they're like, all right, I have like 6,000 gold or whatever. Or, if it's into higher levels, it's like I have 500,000 gold or whatever, and they're like, all right, now you have to spend 2 gold to replenish your arrows, and it's like, yeah, they tend not to care that much when you it's less than 1% of their total income. So yeah, it's such a nothing burger with arrows. And magic ammo, it's hit or miss whether I've used it, but yeah, you definitely need to keep track of that because that's relatively expensive. So yeah, magic ammo. Yeah, I don't often use it. I'll generally just make the bow magic, and then you know the ammo's automatically made magic when it's fired from the bow. So there's that. Sorry, I had a little bit of a burp coming up. Anywho, um, but yeah, that's magic items. Or man, what am I even talking about? Um, but yeah, crafting's a whole fun thing. It really is. It's an area that I've dug into deeper than most people, I think, because it's just something that a lot of people don't care to look at. And also it's incredibly complicated when not just using fabricate. So yeah, it's a whole thing. I don't know. I personally enjoyed it. And I think the rules are kind of cool. Makes sense to me, but it's complicated. There's a reason why I have a whole video on the crafting system, just because it needs it. It's a very complicated subject. Um, I probably could make a better one at some point as well once I figure out how to use tools to make it a little better. But yeah, crafting's fun. I enjoy it. And I mean, I don't know. I enjoy interesting characters. Like, that was one of my favorite character was my character that was all about crafting. Like, he had a mantra that he refused to use any item that he didn't make himself. Like, if he didn't craft it himself, like if it wasn't something that was made by his own 2 hands, he refused to use it. So that was just his thing. And yeah, and he also had a lot of weapons and armor. He was a blacksmith. He was a fighter druid. Um, Mostly because I wanted to go sword and board, and there's not a lot of good options for ranger with sword and board because the two weapon styles that they have are bow and two weapon, and you basically have to pick one, and I was like, "Ugh, I'm wasting that if I go sword and board." So yeah, maybe I should have gone bow and then just like because I also had a bow for him, and then just also gave him like sword and board stuff. That's probably would have been the better option, but it is what it is. Made him a fighter ranger was certainly interesting. Only got to like level 6, so he was like a third level fighter, third level druid. I enjoyed him a lot though. He's a fun character to play as. But yeah, like because of him, like I learned crafting a lot because I had to for him. Have you tried any of the Pathfinder Kingmaker series? I have not. I wasn't familiar with that, to be honest. I've played a little bit of Pathfinder, not a whole lot. Played Pathfinder 1E for about a summer. Wasn't my favorite, but it was all right. I honestly think a lot of it just came down to not the best group synergy, especially seeing as like I'm coming from 3.5 and I didn't have like I was busy taking a bunch of classes, so I didn't have time to like learn the rules for 3.5 or for Pathfinder, and I just kind of had to go in with my knowledge of 3.5 and hope for the best. And the other players there weren't particularly willing to teach me the differences, so it was just a whole mess, and it wasn't the most pleasant for me. But it is what it is. Maybe I'll try again at some point with a different group. Uh, it's a computer game. Feels like D&D in its systems. That makes sense. I mean, like Pathfinder is literally just 3.5. It's literally just a fan made 3.5. Like that's literally what Pathfinder is fans of 3.5 after 4E came out and everyone was like, this sucks. They decided, okay, let's make our own um, upgrade to 3.5. So they made Pathfinder. And I think some of the devs from 3.5 even came on board with the Pathfinder project. So yeah, it was fan made, but also had the actual creators. It was a real deal, and it very much cut into Wizard sales, which is why Wizards made a hard shift to 5e, away from 4e, and it's like, okay, let's go back to our roots with 3.5. Let's let's give the players what they want, and let's give them something like 3.5, which is what they did with 5e. They took 3.5 and they made it more user friendly and took away a lot of the learning curve, and stripped it of a lot of its essence in the process. But they made a game, and it's pretty popular. A lot of people love it. So yeah, I don't like them until they added a. I didn't like them until they added a turn-based mode. Gotcha. Turn-based mode is the best. 4E was so bad. I haven't. Yeah, turn-based. I mean, that's one of the things I love about D&D is it's turn-based. It gives you time to think. You don't have to like react on the fly. You can, you know, look at the situation and be like, okay, what would be the best move to make in this situation? How to use my turn most effectively. So yeah, I love that about it. That it gives me a chance to contemplate my moves, and you know, as a good player, you try and think about this ahead of time. Like while everyone else is taking their turns, you're thinking about, okay, what am I going to do when it's finally my turn? And then when your turn comes, you can take your actions and be kind of quick about it because you already know what you're doing. Sometimes things happen where you have a plan and then one of the other players comes in and messes it up. That's something you can always try and talk with the other players about, to be like, hey, this is what I'm planning. Please don't mess it up. And they can be like, okay. Or they can be like, well, I was planning this. Let's try and work something together. And then like you can, coordinate and find something that works best for the whole party and not just for individuals. So that's always a thing that can and probably should be done. But then there's other times where the DM has one of the enemies do something that messes up your plan, and that's just something you have to react to. There's really nothing you can do about that, and that's part of the fun of it is the DM just messing with things, or just messing with your plans because they're kind of supposed to, at least in my opinion. Like in combat, like when I'm DMing, when I'm setting up a combat, I try and make it so that I think it will kill my players, but barely. Mostly because I know my players are a lot better than I think they are. So if I make it something that I think will kill them, they'll probably survive it without too much trouble because that's just how good they are. So I try and like make it so that after all of that, it'll be a tough fight for them, but something that they won't actually TPK them. But when I'm actually running the game, oh, I'm trying to TPK him. I'm like, all right, here's the resources I gave myself to fight with. Let's do everything I can to TPK my players using just the resources I've been given by myself. You know, and I don't know. I find that to be kind of a fun challenge to because it makes it realistic. By making it so that the fight is in your favor or in the party's favor, that makes it so that okay, that's not so bad. You can like it's not going to TPK probably, but by once the fight starts actually trying to TPK, I find that that makes it for a more engaging fight because it makes it feel like the enemy really is trying to kill them. They're just not quite good enough to do it. And I don't know. I think that it makes for a more engaging fight than to have like the enemy do something that feels like they're holding back that allows the players to win. It's a tough thing to pull off. Takes a little bit of experience, but yeah, you should. I think the DM should definitely try and kill the player during the game, but not give them the tools to actually do the job. You know what I mean? Like when they're playing, try and kill the player, but before the game, don't give themselves the tools they need to actually kill the players. Give them almost enough tools to do it. So yeah, that's my personal thoughts. I think our DM accidentally did that on our first encounter, and also feel like they made the monster run away. I used ghost sounds was a successful natural check to see what might make it run. I mean, that could be that, or maybe they were just like letting you have fun with ghost sounds. Like ghost sounds can definitely be interesting, and if you happen to pick something that would scare them, depending on what the enemy is, if it's something with low intelligence like a wolf or something, then yeah, it makes sense that they might go running when they hear something a particular sound. Triggers natural instincts or whatever. Now, if it's something highly intelligent, they're probably gonna be like, okay, that's probably just a spell, like whatever. But yeah, or if it had no intelligence at all, like it was mindless, then that probably wouldn't work at all. But yeah, it was a we got to get out of this or we're dead. And it was a massive alligator. Okay, well, a massive alligator does make some sense, and there's probably some element of he didn't want to TPK you because as a DM, when you end up in that situation, you're like, okay, I don't want to kill my players off, but as a DM, you should try and avoid putting yourself in that situation. Now, maybe you planned on it and you were that the plan was always to almost like to set them up in a TPK situation, but then have something happen story wise outside that does or something happens like pit the party against some giant monster they have no hope against, but then like right before they deal the final blow, like something happens outside of the battle where the enemy decides to like withdraw in order to go follow some other duty they have. That could be a thing you could do, which would be an interesting little hook. A little overdone, but it's something that could definitely be done just to kind of show the players the power of the enemies that they're facing and really put the fear of God into them. Could definitely be useful, but yeah, having it done that way, that was probably a DM messed up and threw too strong a stuff at you, overestimated your abilities, and tried to fix the problem. That can happen with new DMs and when they don't know their players very well because maybe it's a new campaign. Even with experienced players, that's easy to do at early levels when they're just learning what their players are capable of. Because even if they see the character sheets, they need to know the character sheets. They need to know the player because the player makes a big difference because how the player plays the character is huge. Yeah, you really just need to learn your players and have it just comes down to experience with both the game, the system, and like your players. But the alligator does make sense. Uh, that's part of the beauty of illusions. Uh, they can get you out of all kinds of jams. They really can. Illusions are very nice. Playing with information is actually extremely powerful, especially against something like an alligator, which is, pretty strong, but not particularly bright. Animals have 1 to 2 intelligence. I think alligators actually a 1. So yeah, they're pretty easy to outsmart. Um, but and yes, it failed. It's in check. Yeah, because it has a freaking minus what 5 or 6. It has like a -4 or 5 to end. Of course, there's a high chance it would fail that. Um, our bar got to -9 HP. Ooh, that's bad. So I don't think they meant that to happen, but we were able to save his putt. Yeah, I think that's nasty because -9, like they're probably going to die next round if you don't like heal them immediately. They're nine if they're at -9 and not stable, there's a 90% chance they're dying next turn. So, yikes! Fear of Paylor. Nice, nice. Good old Paylor. RJ, right? Exactly, exactly. Um, but yeah, that's something that's really smart to put in. Like that can make sense. Like you throw a big, nasty encounter at a player, and yeah, like you plan for him to almost die, but then right before they deal the final blow, you have something happen, and that's easy to control for as well because you know okay, it's a little bit tricky because you might do too much damage and actually kill with an earlier attack, but at the same time, like there's you can control when you attack. Maybe have them go up with NPCs, like you have the party and it's like half players and half NPCs, or maybe uh, here's an idea on what you could do. Give them a DMPC in part of the party that's considerably higher level than them. And, your first few encounters have this DMPC just kind of walk through the battle. The players are struggling a bit. It's something the players could handle, but there's, struggling a decent amount. Meanwhile, the DMPC is just easily taking everything out. Then you throw the big baddie at them, and you have this big baddie fight the DMPC. Then the DMPC eventually goes down as you plan for the DMPC to die because he was overpowered, and you don't want to have an overpowered DMPC for very long. And then after the DMPC goes down, you see the big baddie that just took down this DMPC that's several levels higher than the party, and the party knows that this guy's way stronger than they are, and he just he just went down without doing that much damage. This guy comes for the party. He's lunging at them. The party's like, "Ah, crap, we're done." And then something happens, and the guy runs off, and they're like, "Oh, okay, we need to train up. This is serious." You know. You ever play Tome of Forest? I have not. I have not, RJ. I passed the stabilization medicine check, or maybe the bard passed his own. I forgot. LO. That's good. That's good that they passed because stabilization medicine check, that is something you can definitely do, although it takes a turn. And then the bard has his own check. That's just a flat D%. You have to roll a 91 or higher. It's a very simple one. 10% chance of actual success. So yeah, that's a very fun one. But good that he was actually stabilized at -9, because -9 and not stable is extremely scary to have one of your party members at. Because as soon as their turn comes around, there's a 90% chance they just die, and unless you get in there and do something about it by their turn, that's it. There's nothing you can do about it if their turn comes around, other than pray they roll a 91 or higher on the percent. Um, then we got help, etc., and live to fight another day. That's good. All right, though. I mean, there are other ways, I suppose. There's some spells you can use that could work, but they're higher level spells. Like once you get to higher level, the fear of death disappears at high levels in 35. It really does. I'm positive the DMPC thing is going to happen at some point. Nice. Yeah, that was just an idea that kind of came to me just now. It was like, yeah, you could use like a DMPC that's, considerably higher level than the party to, you know, use it for like like part of a session, and just run a few combat encounters, let the players struggle as usual, and then just watch this guy just walk like just clean house, and just really show off just how much better he is than the party, but he's on their side, so that's good. And then just see him die to some monster before the monster runs off after killing him, and the party has to go on. They have to like figure it out after, just to put the fear of Palor into them. The other campaign, it will absolutely happen to the NPC. Nice. Have any of you ever played the board game Dragon Strike? I have not. I really need to play more games, to be honest. But yeah, I have not played it, but it sounds interesting. What kind of game is Dragon Strike? But yeah, there's some fun stuff. And I always like to include I personally like including things from other media, like what was your favorite PC player character? Oh, that was Roger Lanchester. He was the one that I was telling you about that was half fighter, half druid. He was my favorite. He he was all about crafting, and like half of his skills were in craft. It was kind of insane. But yeah, this guy was just loaded down with weapons. He had, a bastard sword, dwarven war axe. He had a maul. I think he had a short, yeah, he had a short sword as well. He had a riding shield with a shield sheath, so he just kept his short sword tucked away in there. He also had daggers that he had kept on him in a little dagger pouch, or I think he just had one of those, but yeah, and then he had a lance as well that he kept on his horse. He didn't carry that one around, but he had a little mount. He had a little mount on his horse for the lance, and when he was riding it, he could pick it up and use that in combat. But when he wasn't on his horse, he just didn't take his lance with him. Yeah, and he had a bow as well. Like this guy was just armed to the teeth, and he made everything himself. I love that character. He was so fun. Maybe I didn't finish making all those weapons, but that was the plan at the very least. It's like D&D Light. It's from 1993, I believe. Ooh, interesting. So that's even before 3.5. That's like, what, AD&D? Interesting. Or D&D 2e. It's actually made by TSR before Wizards of the Coast. Ooh, that's cool. And yeah, Wizards of the Coast, I mean, now it's owned by Hasbro, so that's a whole thing. And I mean, it's been owned by Hasbro since slightly before 3.5, so it is what it is on that. But yeah, are you more of a DM or a PC? And if you choose which, more of a DM for sure. I tend to hog the spotlight, and I know this about myself. And as a DM, that's a good thing. You're supposed to have a lot of time in the spotlight as the DM, because everything revolves around you to some extent. So yeah, it's good to take a big chunk of the table time when you're the DM. You don't want to take too much, but honestly, the amount of attention that the DM gets is kind of perfect. Some actually a little bit more than I care for. So I like it a lot more, because as a player, I tend to get bored waiting for my turn. I'm impatient like that. So I try and not do that, but it's tricky. And yeah, I tend to be more of a DM for that main reason. Although I do love because sometimes you just DM so much and you just get sick of it. So I do love when I can do non-combat situations where it's just role playing, and I can just sit back and watch my players role play, and just especially when they're just like this, when my players decide to role play with each other. Oh, that is so nice, because I can just chill and be like, all right, have fun. Or sometimes I've even done combat where it's like, all right, it's a tournament thing where the players do some PvP against each other. It's like, cool, let the players have fun doing their PvP against each other. Yeah, and then I just kind of have to monitor it and do any refereeing, but let them handle it for the most part. Which it's not something you can do often, but throwing in some controlled PvP, like it's a tournament, and any damage that's done, like if they die, they'll be revived, and like you have everything set in place so that there's no permadeath and all that. That can be fun to do occasionally, and it's a nice break for the DM. um, uh, yeah, I started with second edition. Nice. Uh, and McLaughlin, oh my God, you're hot. Oh well, thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. That means a lot. Um, don't know what to say to that. It's just making me blush here. Um, but yeah, that's I don't know. I like DMing. It's fun. Playing can be fun too, but I need the right DM in order to play, and it's just easier for me to DM personally. So yeah, that's where I stand on the whole DMing versus playing. Is I prefer to DM, but I mean, we need more players than we need DMs in general. Although realistically, in the world, we need more DMs than we do players, because I am an anomaly in that I prefer to DM. Most people won't touch DMing and just want to play, which is a whole thing. So people who actually were willing to DM get stuck doing it and never get a play, and that's a whole thing that happens. And then yeah, most people, they just want to play and never want to DM, which is fine, but it is what it is. I like DMing, but I'd get burned out if I never got to be a player. Exactly. Like I'd like to play every now and then. I prefer to mostly DM, but I do want to play every now and then, because you do burn out. I've been burned out kind of hard on DMing lately. Yeah, I've got this whole encounter that I've been promising my players for a few months, and we've just been putting it off because I am just too burned out to make the characters to do it. So that's the whole thing. I've got the video. I've got, like, I've sort of made them. Like I have videos for like all these characters. Some of them are out, some of them are scheduled. But yeah, it's DMing all the time is rough. So, and I've been DMing this campaign for, man, probably 4 or 5 years now. So yeah, it's a long time. God bless you. Keep up the great work. Oh, I appreciate that, Aaron. Means a lot. It's so hard to find a DM for that reason. It really is, because nobody wants to DM, and part of it is like when you start DMing, you get stuck in it, which kind of sucks. But it's kind of a good problem to have, because it means that we have a lot of players in the community. So that's a good thing, that there's a lot of people that want to play. But at the same time, it's still a problem, because we get DMs that get burned out and would like to play more, but they can't find DMs. So that's part of why I don't feel bad about like wanting to DM all the time, because no one else wants to do it. So it's a job that is much appreciated by most people. So it's like, cool, I get a DM, and yeah. Um, I have plans for a one shot to let the DM play. Oh yeah, I love it when my players do that for me. They've been doing that a fair amount lately, and it is amazing. It'll probably actually end up being 2 to 3 sessions. Oh yeah, that's even better. I have no issue with them going for multiple sessions. Like that's always fun. It's even harder to find a DM for Legacy 3.5 stuff. Oh yeah, 3.5. It's a lot harder to find. They're like, most people, it's like, I play D&D. It's like, cool, what edition? I don't know. It's probably 5e. Like, let's be real. Like, everyone's playing 5e now. Like, trying to find people that play 3.5 or even know that 3.5 is a thing, like that there's more editions than 5e, that's difficult. So, because most of the players are casual and don't even realize that, 3.5 is a thing. So it makes it tough, but they exist. They tend to be older, though, I've noticed. I mean, just looking at the demographics for my channel, like it's, mostly people my age. Like I'm 34, almost 35. Like most of the people are around my age that watch the videos. There aren't a lot of like teenagers and people in their early 20s watching. Some, and that's awesome. It's great that we're having some younger people still in the game. Like when I started, like some of my players were pretty young. And that's amazing that that's still happening. But at the same time, like most people that play 3.5 play it because they've been playing it since they like because they got into it when it was new and they still want to play it. So yeah, that's just facts. Um, it is what it is. It's good and bad. Uh, uh, let's see. What sucks about a DM shortage is finding a DM that fits your taste. Oh, it really is. As a player, as a player becomes that much harder. It really does. It really does. Now, I was the I was a treasurer at the Dragon Club at my school, where we played Dungeons and Dragons. We had like 19 groups. We had a whole Discord set up where it's like, okay, there's like 19 DMs, and the setup was and the way we did it was the DMs all introduced their games, and they said like how many openings they had, and then the players when the people when they walked in to be players, they drew lots. Um, and like they just call them in order. It's like, okay, number one, who do you want to be? Whose game do you want to be in? Number two, whose game do you want to be in? And once the game's filled up, that's like, all right, well, you can't pick that one anymore. And yeah, and if you like as the DM, if you made a game that nobody was interested in, that kind of sucked. But it was very player focused, and I really liked that. Even though I was a DM, like that was kind of my idea to do that because I really should be player focused. And I really tried to emphasize to players that, hey, and I do this on my channel too, that if you don't enjoy your game, like if you play D&D and you don't enjoy it, try again with a different group, or maybe talk to the players and the DM. Maybe the reason why you're not enjoying that group is just a miscommunication. And if you talk to them about what you're liking and not liking, they can work with you. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll be like, you're being unreasonable, you suck. Or maybe, they're just a toxic group and you're not a toxic person. Maybe there are real problems, but maybe there's not. Like, don't give up just because your first experience was bad. Like, D&D is very much a social game. So yeah, um, minor rant there, but that's just something that I'm very passionate about. Like, players shouldn't give up on the game. Like, it doesn't even matter if it's 3.5, 5e, or whatever. Like, don't give up on it just because you had one bad experience or a few bad experiences. Like, you might have just had a bad group or a couple of bad groups. Try and find one that works for you. Um, let's see. Yeah, how did you keep your players from making the switch to 5e? Well, how I did it was I actually didn't have a group during the time when 5e came out. So at my college, what happened was we decided it was 5e when I started going there, but I had talked, it was still a small club, but I had talked the leadership, which I was not part of it yet. I became part of it later, but I talked the leadership of the club into, I kept saying we should like do this as DM's choice, like the DM picks the system. And that's so they decided to put it to a vote, and it won pretty handily, DM's choice over 5e, because most people are like, all right, well, we can still pick 5e if we want. It's just this is being more inclusive and allowing other people to play. So then I'm like, all right, I'm going to make a 3.5 game, and some other people made other games, and like there's someone who made a Pathfinder game, and some other people made some more obscure stuff, and we just all played our game. And most people did 5e, and the players picked, and a few people joined my game. It's pretty slow at the start, to be real. There's like one guy that was like, yeah, I'm all in on 3.5. Like, he messaged me ahead of time. He was like, yeah, I'm 100% in on this. He's the guy who helps me with the channel now. But yeah, slowly people joined, and then other people left, and it was a long haul before I actually got my group together the way it is now. Like, it took probably 2 years before my group really formed, like the core unit that we are now. So it was a struggle. Like, even with like somewhat ideal conditions of doing it, at a college where there's a ton of players, where there's 100, 200 people, like in a room being like, all right, I want to play, let's find a group. Like, it was still hard to find people for 3.5. I wanted to try to DM a game, and because of the blindness, I'm going to have a hard time doing so. That's rough. I miss writing down notes. Dang it, that is rough. I mean, there's ways you can do it. I'm sure you can hopefully find some like accommodations for disabilities and stuff that can help with things. Um, I'm sure there's like some general blindness things out there. I don't know what exists in terms of like, tabletop specific stuff for it, but yeah, that can be tricky, especially seeing is like things like battle grids can be tougher to do as well. That can be tough. Um, yeah, but best of luck with that, man. Like, yeah, I mean, there's always theater of the mind too, but yeah. Haha, I'm 38 and I'm 30. Nice, nice. Yeah, like I say, most people are older, but it's kind of good for me because you know, uh, ad rates are varied based off of the people watching, and if the people are watching are some teenage kids in high school, how much disposable income do they have? Not a lot. So advertisers aren't going to pay a lot. So the fact that my demographic tends to be you know guys that are like in their 30s and maybe late 20s, I imagine that's a higher paying. People pay more ads for that, so it's just a nice little benefit for me personally. I'm going to be transparent about that. I haven't made much. I haven't made anything yet. YouTube owes me a little bit of money, but not enough that they're going to pay out. They won't until 100, and that they're not. I'm not particularly close to that. But the fact that my demo is older is something that could mean I could actually be financially secure from this at lower numbers than other channels, which is nice. Uh, Willing to bet there's dice rollers that say the number out loud. Yeah, there probably are. If not, you could make one. I could probably make one, to be honest. Uh, Haha, you're welcome, Mitch. LOL. I love it. Love the meta about it. It makes sense to think that way. Yeah, I've watched a lot of videos to like learn like the meta behind making YouTube videos because there's a lot more to it than just like researching the subject and what you guys see. Like there's a whole lot more to YouTube than what the average viewer sees. You have to think about all sorts of stuff between the meta behind everything. You have to think about video editing, which let's like a lot of people. Okay, with my earlier videos, recording was a good chunk of the video, but with the stuff I've been making lately, no, it's like so little. I spend so little time recording compared to how much time I spend editing videos. Like it takes hours to edit a video. Like an 8-minute video will probably take, I don't know, a good 4 or 5 hours to edit and make look the way it does. Like adding all the music and all the visual elements. Cause like the visual elements, a lot of the times I have to like get the pictures, and once I get them, I like there's so much that goes into it. And I have to make the thumbnail, which takes a bit of time. That's not too bad, but it does take some time. Um, yeah, it's a whole process. Like YouTube's so much harder than most people realize. But it is what it is, and it's what you got to do if you want to make videos. So yeah, and my earlier videos, I do not do that at all. Like if you look at like my video on like the cleric, like the actual video on the cleric, not like many of the supplemental videos I made about like various things about the cleric. Yeah, that thing was like I made in like 2016 or something. Uh, yeah, it was, or maybe even before that. Maybe it was like 2013. It might have been 2013. I don't know. It was a long time ago. But yeah, back then it was literally just me talking into a webcam and posting it completely raw, unedited. That's how I made my videos back then. Um, and there wasn't a whole lot more to it for a long time. I've added thumbnails to all of them, which did take some effort. Even the older ones I put thumbnails on. But yeah, it's yeah, YouTube's fun. But I don't know. It is what it is, and I enjoy making content for you guys and like putting stuff out there. Is there an easy way to contact you if you have 3-5 questions? Um, the best way would probably be to join my Discord. Um, I don't think I put a link in any of the live streams. I really should, but I haven't. But there's a link on like most of my like all of my recent videos. I don't think I put it on any of the older ones, but pretty much all my recent videos have links to my Discord. So yeah, my DM handbook and online resources will be best, I'm sure, but sometimes someone else's input is nice too. Yeah. Um, yeah, the Discord's probably the best one. And you wouldn't even just be like talking to me on there. Like there's tons of other people that are very expert on this. Like some people in the community are more like know more about the game than I do. Like, let's be real. I'm not the most experienced and knowledgeable person about three when it comes to 3.5 in the world. There are definitely people that have me beat by a mile. I'm just the one putting my face out there because none of the other people that know more than me do that. So yeah. Discord link. Let me see if I can grab that. I really should have had that ready, but no one's asking that. How often do you feel you go into a game where you're blindly swinging? Pretty much always, at least as the DM. The player's PC just keep asking questions you're not prepared for until you're like, well, that's the plot now. Pretty much always. Like I've gotten to the point where I have a rough outline of what's going to happen, and yeah, let me grab a Discord link real quick. For those of you that wanted one, give me a second. I was not prepared for that. Actually, let's do it this way. Let me just pull up one of my videos and copy the link out of there. But yeah, let me grab that once I find one. Sorry, it's not, as I said, wasn't prepared for this. And my mouse is, there we go. Control C. And there you go. There's a Discord link. I just copied that from video, to be honest. But yeah, if you guys want to join the Discord, welcome in. See, we got a couple of people already. I really should have thought to put that on there. If I was streaming on Twitch, I would have the Discord. Make sure you get your roles. Grab the D&D role. Oh, dang. We're getting all sorts of people. But yeah, grab the D&D role because I stream on Twitch, play a lot of Pokemon and stuff on there as well. And the Discords for both. But yeah, if you want to join the Discord, if you're joining, grab the D&D role. And then, if you want to talk D&D stuff, do that in the D&D section. Because again, like I said, I do this for, I use it for both my D&D stuff and for my Twitch stuff. I thought about putting them as separate servers, but I don't know. I thought it might be cool to have them together, create some sort of mixed community. I don't know. Don't know if that was a good idea or not, but that's what I decided on. And it's confusing, but it is what it is. So yeah. But yeah, that's probably the best way to talk with me. Still working on setting up the Discord. I'll probably be working on the D&D section a lot more in the future once I figure out what exactly I want to do with it. So yeah. What were we talking about before? We talked about Discord. How do I go and blindly swing? Pretty much always. Like players they're unpredictable. You never know what they're going to do. So I go in being like, all right, this is how things are going to start. And have some idea of what could happen. Be like, all right, well, here's where we're at. Here's what my immediate actions are going to be, because the players aren't able to really do a lot about the first couple of actions that I plan on taking, or like the first few things. So it's like, okay, well, this is going to be the start. And like if it's a combat, like the first couple of guys in the initiative, it's like, all right, here's what they're gonna do. Like I know what they're gonna do before things start because they're at the top of the initiative or whatever. Or if the players are at the top, I still have an idea of what my first few guys are gonna do. Players might mess with it, but it is what it is. Yeah, I go in with a rough idea, and then I improvise from there. Like, if you really want to be a good DM and you don't want to make your game feel like railroady, which some players prefer the railroady style, um, but if you don't want to do that, you really got to master improv. Like, that's really the best way to do it. You don't want to prepare too much. You want to prepare enough. Like, you don't want to be like, okay, this is every little thing, and you don't want to have like notebooks describing everything because half that crap isn't going to get used. You have a rough idea. You say, okay, this is the general shape of the town. Here's where the towns are next door. Here's the rough government structure of the town. Here's roughly what's going on in the world. You have a general plot that's going on, and like you just kind of roll with what the players decide to do. And maybe you have, if your players decide they're going to be apathetic and not do anything, you have like a story that you can kind of force them into and be like, okay, well, this is what's going to happen because the players decide they aren't going to take action on their own, but which happens. But you also need to be prepared that maybe the players will want to take actions and won't want to be railroaded down your campaign. And which point you're like, okay, well, now we're doing this. Happens all the time. Yeah. Thank you for the link. Figured it made sense to get a way of contacting you in the future. So again, thanks. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the live stream. This was fun. Have a blessed day, everyone. Have fun. Appreciate having you here, Bloodbot. We're still going to be here for another 40 minutes or so. But yeah, good having you here, man. Yeah, if anyone's got any other questions or comments or anything, feel free to let me know in chat. But yeah, being a DM, it's challenging, but really it just comes down more than anything to knowing your players, like what they want, like what they enjoy in a good story, like what you enjoy in a good story, and coming up with something that's going to work for everybody. You just have fun with it. Figure out, like my players, like they're all level 26 and we do absolutely insane stuff. Like the one time when my players decided, well, one of my players used polymorph any object a lot. And one of my players decided, he got curious, what would happen, and he used it to turn things and creatures and people into all sorts of crazy stuff. But he got to thinking, what if you were to use polymorph any object to turn someone into food, and then while they were food, you took a little nibble of it? What would happen? So his plan was, okay, a guy that polymorphs everyone, polymorph me into some food, and then everybody just take a couple of little bites out of me, and we'll see how that goes. And yeah, the paladin ended up talking him out of that, and they ended up just transporting some low-level demon and doing that to him instead, which is probably for the best, because after they got done nibbling at the bar, turns out the guy was missing his leg when he turned back, so that was fun. Yeah, my players do crazy stuff. Yeah, when the paladin has to talk the true namer out of letting the party cannibalize him. It's some weird stuff that my players get into. And that's one of the more safe topics, weirdly enough. My players are crazy. My players are absolutely insane with the stuff that they do. Like, it's nuts. Sounds like the crazy ideas me and my friends would have done to not starve. Wow. Yeah, and this wasn't even just to not starve. This was I wonder what would happen if we did this. Like this was just a science experiment. They just wanted to see how it would work. And yeah. They've done some crazy stuff with polymorph any object. It, One of my players is really big on that spell. He likes using it a lot. That guy's crazy, like actually crazy. Well, in character he is, like it's the player's not, but yeah, his character is nuts, and it's fun. It's fun watching some of the ideas he comes up with. The player's very good at coming up with crazy ideas. Uh, oh boy, some of the ideas he comes up with. It's and most of them never happen because they're nuts and aren't practical in the slightest. Like there's just things he's not capable of doing at all, despite being well, he's actually 31st level, but yeah, some of the stuff's absolutely insane. The party is they're funny. I love them. They're awesome. So yeah, um, but that's one of the things I love about the game is like you have players if they love that kind just like goofing around, like especially during downtime, but they'll goof around even during the combats to some extent. Like, yeah, I've seen like some of my like the artifact. Well, one of the not artificers, the archivist. One of because we have two archivists in the party. Yeah, um, but one of them he just goofs around even during combat to some extent. Like generally, like not when it's going to be a huge issue, but like not like in the middle of a major combat, but like there's a major combat coming and we're not currently in anything too dangerous. He'll goof around and be like, I'm going to cast create water to just jump on someone's head because they're being annoying. It's like, okay, that's a thing that happened. He just wasted a cantrip on something useless, but at the same time, like it's a cantrip, so it's not that big a deal. It's they do fun stuff, and I love it. It's really awesome. Um, yeah, yeah, it's a great group, but yeah, I'm definitely planning on. I'm definitely interested in creating another group at some point with you guys. But I would need to know how many people are actually interested and can schedule a time and would actually like get on webcam and live stream it with me and also be in a video. Like there's a lot of asks for it, like because if I'm going to do it, I want to get content out of it. So yeah, that's why I'm waiting. I'm here for it. Nice, brother Kush. Yeah, so it's just something that I definitely plan on doing at some point here in the future. Um, yeah, maybe I should start looking into that. So yeah, that's something that might happen going forward. We'll see. So there'd be videos on the channel and also on my Twitch, which I haven't streamed in a while. But yeah, I've mostly been streaming Pokemon on there, which I don't know if any of you guys have played Pokemon, but Scarlet and Violet have got me super addicted. Not gonna lie, very fun games. Yeah, honestly, the things I like about them are the same things I like about 3.5. Like Pokemon has a lot of customization, so that's what I love about them. I don't know who else here likes that, but that's just what I do on Twitch when I do stream on Twitch, which I haven't in a while, but I'm going to get back into that at some point. So yeah, I mean RPGs are just that's what I just love RPGs. Tabletop RPGs like 3.5, like definitely one of my faves. In terms of tabletop, 3.5 is definitely my favorite. But I love video games too, like various different RPGs, mostly Pokemon, Final Fantasy, good games. So yeah, Final Fantasy Tactics. That was I played Advanced, but yeah, that was very fun games. Um, yeah. Anywho, just some more stuff about me if anyone was curious. But yeah, I'll sometimes like if I'm sometimes just to spice things up. Like a lot of my players are into anime. Like I suspect a large number of people who play D&D 3.5 are into anime. There's a decent overlap there between the communities. So I'll be like, all right, let's make this little mini campaign anime inspired. So you'll be fighting against anime characters. I'll do that sometimes, or I'll make it video game inspired. Like I had my players fight against Ganondorf once. That was fun. So yeah, figured out like how to like make the Triforce in 3.5. So that was interesting, like just homebrewing the Triforce. Basically, it was just a held item that didn't take a slot that had some pretty ridiculous benefits. Um, Courage or power gave a plus 20 to strength and constitution, and also gave immunities to certain things. Wisdom gave a plus 20 to wisdom and intelligence, and also gave various different other immunities like mind affecting stuff. And then courage was a plus 20 to charisma and dexterity, just because those were the only ones left. And they also kind of fit Link. And yeah, those also gave some benefits. So yeah, just some things that I kind of come up with. And if you happen to get all three, you get all of that plus some more stuff like, I don't know, ability to cast wish at will or something. I don't know. I hadn't fully thought that one through. Think one of your last LS. You said you are getting books from Amazon. Is your collection authentic, or do you get reprints at Divine Through RPG? They are all authentic. I buy them all used off Amazon, so they're decently expensive. Yeah, yeah, they're not reprints. Well, I mean, some of them are legitimate reprints because of that one time that Wizards decided in the 4E era to reprint the core books plus the magic item compendium and the spell compendium. At which point I picked up two players' handbooks, a magic item compendium, and a spell compendium. So I did get the authentic reprints of those during the time period that those were out. In fact, my player's handbook reprint is one. I got two player's handbook reprints, and one of them is still in the wrapper. So that's actually mint condition. So yeah, that one I'm pretty. That one's something I care a lot about. Yeah, that's one of my. That's definitely a book that I have. But yeah, I've been buying them on Amazon, and as far as I know, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're all authentic. So yeah, like they're not cheap. They're really not cheap. I haven't heard of Drive Through RPG, but I imagine that those wouldn't be. I imagine they wouldn't look the same. So I don't know. That's something I need to keep in mind. Maybe they're not authentic. Hopefully they are. Yeah, definitely something I need to look into though. But I think they are all authentic. Like they feel and look authentic and all that good fun stuff. So yeah, like I mean, I've got a decent amount of experience knowing what authentic books look like from back before that existed, back when they were still printing new books. So I've been playing since '06, but I've been playing seriously since '09. So I've been at the game for a little while. Yeah. It'll have a batch number, last page at the bottom. Interesting. Interesting. And I'm assuming it looks like the same otherwise. Well, I'll have to take a look at that. Hopefully none of mine are part of that, but if they are, they are. So yeah. Interesting. I didn't know that they were doing that. And I'm gonna have to look into that because I don't know if that Wizards that's doing that, or is that like a third party thing printing them? I'm very curious now how that's working. Because if Wizards is doing like reprints that you can like order on demand, that'd actually be kind of cool. Wasn't a thing that I was aware of, but if they are, that's actually amazing for the community. Like being able to get physical books that are, especially if they're somewhat legit. So yeah, uh, like legally legit, because legality kind of matters and all that fun stuff and whatever. I don't know, just knowing that your book's legal and that you can use it, especially like for me, like making videos, yeah, that's definitely something I'll have to look into. So, yeah, not something I can do at the moment though, because I'd have to get up and that's gonna make the live stream suck and all that fun stuff. But yeah, let's see, we got a fair amount more time left on this. If anyone's got any other questions, let's see, what were we talking about last? I got into 3.5 by reading my parents' PhD. Oh, I missed that one. By reading my parents' PhD and falling in love with the spell section. Oh, dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, the spell section, that can be really fun. I think for me, getting into it, I think the feat section is always the one that really caught me and made me get really interested. Also, I was kind of young, and the monster manual was definitely interesting. There's a few spicy picks in there that younger me was a little bit too interested in, but yeah, that's just me being silly. Back when I was younger, similar. I'm cheap and get the lesser quality paper. Drive Through RPG has a lot of PDFs and prints of hard soft covers. I always all mine are hard covers. Just shot Draconomicon, Wizards of Coast makes a profit from it. Okay, that's good. How do you feel about class variants? Oh, class variants. Yeah, I do that stuff. I'm assuming you're talking about like alternate class features. Yeah, those are awesome. I use those a decent amount. They can make classes quite a bit better. Yeah, I use those a lot when I make builds, just because a lot of the time, you go to make a build and you're like, all right, I want to use this class for it, but it gets this thing that I really don't need for this build. Is there something I can get rid of to, you know, get rid, to can I get rid of it and get something better for it? Because I don't need this aspect of the class. So I've definitely used those before. Plus, there's stuff in like Unearthed Arcana of like paladins where you can have them less restricted in alignment, in that you can have them restricted in all the extreme alignments instead of just lawful good. So that's kind of cool. Favorite class? I don't have a favorite class, but I have a few that I really like. Various different archetypes. So the archetypes I tend to like are either casters that are just like super overpowered. They're just like super confident in their abilities, like these guys that can cast like crazy, but tend to be like weak physically. Low strength, potentially low dex and con, but I try to keep those decent just because that's actually important for making a good character. But a low strength score because not super important on a caster. And yeah, make them super intelligent or super charismatic or wise or whatever is their casting stat, and just make this like pompous caster, usually pompous. And that's one archetype I really like. Another, I like making big dumb oafs as well. Those are also really fun. So I like making like a barbarian or a fighter, and have them have like really high physical stats like strength and constitution and maybe decent dexterity, and then maybe an okay wisdom, and then just dump intelligence and charisma, and just have this dumb brute who's like just a complete jerk, no social skills whatsoever, and a complete idiot. But this guy's an absolute bruiser, and he's not easy to take down. So I don't know. I tend to vary between those two archetypes. Very, very different archetypes. Let's be real. Um, and sometimes I'll go into some other stuff, like Rangers can be fun sometimes, but I typically tend to go with one of those two. I have a least favorite though, and that would be the Rogue. I just don't like Rogue types. Just not my thing. I don't know. Some people like them. Some people really like them. It's just not my thing. It is what it is. Um, what's your thoughts on Sword Sage getting 6+int times 6 skills at first level? I mean, that's not bad. I mean, I think the Rogue gets 8. So, or wait, times 6 at first level? What? I've never heard of. That's got to be a typo, right? Because I've never heard of a class. That's how it's written. That's got to be a typo, because every class gets times 4 at first level. They didn't errata it. That's insane. I hadn't heard of that, but that's insane. Yeah, like every class gets times four at first level, and then just the base after that. I find it really hard to believe that Sword Sage would get extra at first level, but if it does, I mean, that's certainly interesting. It certainly gives a reason to go Sword Sage at first level, because I mean, that's only your very first level. Um, that's not your first level of Sword Sage. So as your first character level, something else, and you wouldn't get that. But they seem very skill based compared to other martial classes. That's true, but I mean, look at the rogue. I mean, they're what, 8+int times four at first level. So I don't know. Especially seeing is like the whole changing it to times six. Like one of the things that you can always do, except for maybe with this Sword Sage thing, is you can always say, okay, I'm going to look at, so I'm going to go whatever plus int, whatever your number is, like in this case, 6+int. And I'm going to pick that many skills and just max them out. And I'll just keep them maxed out. And that'll be how I do my skills forever. That's always an option. Is it the best option? No. And it gets complicated if you multi-class. But if you're not multi-classing, that's always something you can do. But with this Sword Sage option, it forces you to, pick two more that you're going to put points in at first level and then maybe never touch again. So I don't know. That's weird to me. That seems really weird and extremely out of place. Um, Especially if they like don't cover like why. And it sounds like there's no explanation given like why they get extra. Because if there's text saying they get extra at first, they get more, they get times six instead of the normal times four because they're really skilled. This class is really skillful. Like if that's written explicitly, it's like, okay, well, it wasn't a typo. I guess that's just a special Sword Sage thing. But if they didn't, that just seems like it's probably a typo or something. Especially seeing is it's 6+int times six, like 6 and 6, like that makes it like the fact that they're both sixes makes it seem like it's probably a typo, and maybe they just forgot to errata it. To be fair, Tome of Battle came out really late in 3.5's lifespan. It's clearly a typo that didn't get fixed as they were moving to 4E. Yeah, I'd say that's probably the case because, yeah, and I mean, rules is written. Yeah, they get more if you take your first level at Sword Sage, you get a couple extra skill points. Cool, but at the same time, like, it doesn't seem like it. Like it's pretty clearly a typo. Like rules is intended, almost certainly a typo. It's yeah, and the erratas aren't perfect, especially the later ones. Like Player's Handbook errata, probably pretty accurate. In fact, the reprint of the Player's Handbook, which I have, it actually has the errata built into the text, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so I have like the oldest version of the Player's Handbook and then the newest, which is the reprint with the errata already like put into the text. So there is no errata for that version because it's like what's written in that Player's Handbook is like it already has the errata worked into it. So that's kind of cool. And I'm sure that's true with the reprints of the Monster Manual and the Dungeon Master's Guide, as well as my Magic Item Compendium and Spell Compendium. Aren't going to have any erratas in them because they are the reprints. So that's kind of cool. I noticed it after combing through some old theory crafting columns. Interesting. Yeah, you can find some crazy stuff on theory crafting. That's one of the most fun things about D&D 3.5 is theory crafting, and especially like talking with other people about it. Like you come up with just ridiculous stuff. Have you ever tried a binder? I have not. I'm vaguely familiar with them, but I have not tried one. I mostly DM, so I haven't tried too much stuff personally. And in terms of things that I've made, it's hard to make characters as a DM. You have more opportunity to make stuff just because you're making lots of characters, but you have to make lots of characters. That's a ton of work. Like making an entire character just so that they can get killed. that's a lot. Like for that's part of why I get burned out. Like especially with like this encounter that I'm doing. I have to make like 6, 7 characters, and they're all just gonna die in this fight. And I know they will. Like they're literally just to challenge my players for one fight, and then they'll be gone. And I have to make like entire characters, which sucks. And that's one of the problems with like high level play is in order to challenge your players, you really have to make custom characters to take them down. But that's a lot of work. So yeah, that's really on like high level, especially with min max characters. Like my players are very min maxed. In order to really challenge them, I have to actually like put in a ton of work to make characters that are like make encounters that are on their level. So that's a tough. Do you ever play during did you play during the living campaigns? The living campaigns. What do you mean by that? I'm not familiar with the living campaigns. I mean, I used to play online back before COVID. That was a thing I used to do. COVID or not online. I used to play in person before COVID. Now it's Living Greyhawk. Gotcha. I haven't heard of that. I mean, I play mostly Greyhawk, but yeah. Now everything's online. My group's online. Everybody moved away. Well, not everybody. There's still like two of my players, I think, that still live in town. But yeah, essentially everyone played in the same world across the country. Ooh, interesting. I never did do that. I That sounds interesting though. I did do a literally the weekend before COVID hit. So this was maybe not the smartest of ideas, but my club, we had this huge event that we've been planning for months, and it was a collaboration with the esports club, where we basically rented out the ballroom, and we had like 5 DMs all playing the same game. So it was like so it was one game, but 5 different DMs all running different like sections of the dungeon, and players could bounce between groups if they wanted, although most of them didn't. They pretty well stuck with the groups that they were in. Um, and yeah, like the shop, like I ran the shop, which basically the DMs didn't have to deal with any of the money stuff. So like if they wanted to buy something, they came to me, and I was just like, all right. It was 5e, but it is what it is. It was fun. Yeah. But yeah, having a lot of it's maybe not the best of ideas considering everything got shut down like days later, but it was still fun. We got things. I'm still glad we did it before things got shut down. But yeah, probably the closest I've done to Living Greyhawk was just a little local thing where we played some 5e, and I was mostly just the shopkeeper. I didn't do much. Um, that was my introduction to D&D. Nice. That sounds like a good time. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I literally was just handling the logistics of like, all right, people come to me with money, and I let them buy stuff, and it's like, all right, you have gear now. It's like, okay, cool. They bought gear, and I was also like not only doing that for like in-game shopkeeping, but it was also like out-of-game shopkeeping. Before the game, I gave everybody like a handful. We bought these like little fake gold tokens, and before the game, we handed them out to everybody. And then we eventually we got in pizza and soda and all sorts of stuff, and or mostly just pizza and soda. And they could exchange the little gold coins for pizza and soda. And yeah, it's like, all right, it's 2 coins for this, and everybody got like 5 or something. So everybody got to eat, but it was a way that people got to, you know, they were rationed to like so much so that everybody got some. It was pretty cool. I missed the true tabletop experience. Yeah, same. I can't do 5e. That's a total different caliber of casual players. It really is. Um, I don't mind 5e, but it's just not the same. And I'd much prefer 3.5 to 5e. So yeah, 5e it's all right. It's not the best in the world, but it's not the worst. I enjoy it. So yeah. But 3.5 is like always going to be my favorite. Like, Yeah, 5e just it's fun. It's just it doesn't give me everything I'm looking for in a game. That's really all it comes down to is like it's fun. There's nothing inherently wrong with 5e exactly. It's just missing something. And that's what I love about 3.5 because it gives me what I'm missing. And that's, the customization. Like the problem, like my problem with 5e is like you make a character and it's like, okay, like how many different barbarians can you make? I don't know, maybe like three or something. How many different fighters? Like three. Like you only have like three different options for any class in 5e. Like you pick your class, you pick your race, you pick your subclass, and that's basically your character. There's really nothing else to choose beyond that has a whole lot of meaningful impact on the game. Everything else is kind of minor. Whereas with 3.5, like there's a lot more decisions that you have to make about your character that can really influence who your character is and how they function. Didn't they also nerf multiclassing in 5e? Sort of. The base nerf multiclassing, I think, actually got buffed, but there's just not a lot of reason to do that. Yeah, no multiclassing is too easy to break in 5e, if anything. It really is. But the problem is the way the classes are built, it's heavily incentivized to just go straight into one class and not to multiclass. So although multiclassing does work and you actually get a buff from it, it's like the benefits of just going single class are much better in 5e. I think the classes are just better designed with the 20 level build, whereas in 3.5 they're not unfortunately 3.5 most classes aren't designed well for a 20 level build. Like look at the wizard. Like they get their spell casting, sure, but aside from their spell casting, which you can get advanced with a million different prestige classes, what do they really get after first level? They get feet every fifth level, every 5 levels, so 5, 10, 15, 20. Cool. Not really that much. Like you can easily take prestige classes that will advance your casting full and really not lose anything in terms of the wizard, because the wizard doesn't get anything aside from that. So what's the point? Like who cares? And there's so many classes that are built like that, or classes that are just built really top heavy, like the paladin. Like the first few levels of paladin are amazing, like, but after that they don't really get anything. And you're just kind of sitting there gaining like mild benefits every now and then. It's like, okay, the benefits I've had forever are steadily getting better. That's cool. Like, it, I think 5e did a better job of dealing with that kind of stuff so that multiclassing isn't as necessary. But at the same time, I don't know. I like 3.5 better because multiclassing's fun. And yeah, maybe I'm thinking of Pathfinder. Could be Pathfinder. I know Pathfinder's extremely similar to 3.5. You can use most of 3.5 in Pathfinder. Like Pathfinder is generally considered to be like 3.75 is what a lot of people refer to Pathfinder as, just because like a lot of 3.5 and 3.0 stuff you can just like throw into Pathfinder and it'll just work. Pathfinder 1E did make most prestige classes not worth going into. Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, like in 3.5, 9 times out of 10, if you're making a build and you want it good, you prestige class. You take as few levels in base classes as possible, and you fill up on prestige classes, and that's how you make a good character. Is that always the case? No, there's 100% exceptions to that. If you want to make a good ranger, you're probably going to want most of your levels in ranger, weirdly enough. But ranger's not the best class in the world, but it is one of the more balanced ones where you literally do want to just go full ranger, or maybe take a slight dip in like scout or something, but mostly go ranger. And then take the feats so that you get scout benefits on top of ranger. That's a solid way to do it, but for the most part you're going to want prestige classes. Druid 20 is one of the best ways to build a Druid. Yeah. That's one of the problems with the Druid. Is it's the best class in the game, but it doesn't prestige class well because it has so much going for it. It has spell casting. That's easy enough to replicate with prestige classes. You have animal companion. Okay, there's prestige classes that can do that and still get spell casting. But then you also have wild shape. I don't think there's any prestige class that gets all three of those. Like you can get two of them, but not all three. And spellcasting is the easiest to get of them, but still, and the best of them. But yeah, you're right. That's one of the problems with Druid. Whereas with other classes, they're not as good as the Druid, but they prestige class much better than the Druid, which does not prestige class well. Um, Although there are great Druid prestige classes, but you absolutely lose stuff over. Like there's absolutely a trade-off to just going Druid 20, unlike with Cleric, where there's not much of a trade-off to go Cleric 20 over, various other Cleric builds. Especially things like Radiant Servant of Palor and Sacred Exorcist. There's really no trade-off to going those over Cleric 20. Most other ones do have some with Turn Undead, though. Let's see. With class variants in 3.5, you can get a feat almost every level. You just take 1 to 2 levels in a ton of base classes. Yeah, you can definitely do that. Although your feats are going to always be restricted that way, but like any feats that you get from a class, with very few exceptions, are going to be limited in what you're allowed to take. I think the Chameleon, I'm pretty sure that what they get for their bonus feat, it can be anything, and you can switch it out daily, which is really amazing. But aside from that, I don't know of any that don't have restrictions. Like even fighter, you're limited to fighter bonus feats, which is a lot of them, but it's a restriction. Not sure how viable it is, but I've messed with the idea a ton. Nice. Arcane Hierophant is probably my favorite prestige class. That is a really good one. I mean, that one is one of the best, especially for the Urge. Like, it's so good because it mixes Druid with casting, with arcane casting, like Wizard, or better yet, Archivist. And yeah, it can be, or wait, no, not Archivist. Like, yeah, Wizard and Druid. I don't know why. Yeah, Archivist doesn't work with that. But anywho's, yeah, you go Wizard, Druid, super powerful, very good class. Love the way that it combines Animal Companion and Familiar. Very, very handy. Yeah, really nice one. Plus a ton of extra stuff as well, and full casting on both. It's a really good one. Not the best, but it's one of the best. As far as PRCs goes, I'm a sucker for Mage of the Arcane Order. Ooh, interesting. I'm vaguely familiar with that one. It's a good one, but it's also one of those ones that, like, I would classify something of a filler PRC. Like, it doesn't do a lot, but it is good. Yeah, it's also a good one. It really is. Do other players use any of the early entry methods to get into the Urge builds? Some, but not usually. Like anything that I would consider to be cheese, no. But if it's a, you know, if it's a, if it's a prestige class that does like is intended to get in early, then yeah, that works. There's one in Complete Mage that only requires like 3 levels, or is it 4 levels? I think it was only 3. It's like, and it's a great filler one, so it's like, yeah, you can use that to get in early. But if it's stuff that requires you to like have magic items to qualify for things, or to, yeah, I don't allow like the weird cheesy stuff. Like, I'd require pretty much, you have to very much like hard to meet the requirements. Having like some weird like roundabout way of meeting them, I generally don't allow. Usually, personally, I allow it. I just don't allow Anima Mage with no binder levels. Fair enough. I mean, if I was going to do like a somewhat cheesy The Urge build that I'd allow would be something like, well, actually, I wouldn't allow it for my players just because of alignment restrictions. But oh, what would it be? Oh, I'm trying to remember the name. Freaking, it's a evil. I can't remember. Man, I'm spacing the names, but yeah, there's ways to make it work. There's a feat that gives you a second level spell at first level, and a feat that lets you cast Arcane as Divine. Yeah, those I don't really allow because the Anima Mage cheese is very cheesy. Yeah, those I'm like, I don't really allow those ones to be honest. But anyways, we are at the 2 hour mark. It's been great chatting with you guys. It was nice having actual people chatting the entire time. Unlike my last two, where I was stumbling around for the first while and last while. Yeah, great hanging out with you guys, but it is time for me to wrap this up. I will see you guys again in 1 week, same time, same place here on YouTube. Um, yeah, have a good day, man. You too, RJ. Uh, I will see you guys in 1 week for our fourth of 7 of these. So, yeah, I'll see you then. Anyways, as always, I'm Mitch. I'll be seeing you.